Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Newsbeat. This broadcast is live from our studios at Northridge in Accra. My name is Kenneth. Jesse, here are stories making headlines today. Chairman of the National Media Commission cautions journalists to be responsible in their line of duty to improve their credibility. His comments come as the GJA marks the 20th edition of the World Press Freedom Day. Supreme Court to hear the case filed by 3 NDC MPs to halt the implementation of the controversial electronic transaction levy today. And on the foreign front, European Union unveils proposals for new sanctions on Russia, including a ban on Russian oil imports by the end of this year. Details are up shortly. Stay with us. Welcome to the program. Ghana has dropped 30 points in the latest ranking in the World Press Freedom Index. It moved from the rank of 30 in 2021 to 60 in 2022. This indicates a 100% drop for Ghana when it comes to countries with the freest media.
The Reporters Without Borders World Press Freedom Index measures pluralism, media independence, the robustness of legislative frameworks, and the safety of journalists in 180 countries and 5 regions. The 2022 Press Freedom Index would not come as a surprise to many media watchers who have expressed concerns over attacks and violations against journalists and media houses perceived to be aligned with the opposition. Ghana's celebrated press freedom status has deteriorated, pushing the country down the ladder of the League of Countries with the freest media in the world. In Africa, the country nosedived from 3rd to 10th. This is Ghana's worst performance in 17 years when its place is to 6th in 2005. The slump makes Burkina Faso, a country governed by a military regime, better than Ghana in terms of press freedom. Ahead of Ghana in this year's ranking is a list of other African countries such as Seychelles at 13, Namibia at 18, South Africa 35, Cape Verde 36, Cote d'Ivoire 37, Burkina Faso 41, Sierra Leone 46, the Gambia 51, and Niger 59.
So let's now turn to our infographics wall to look at how Ghana has fared in the last decade. First, let's know what the indicators used for the assessments are. And the first one is pluralism, and it measures the degree to which opinions are represented in the media. The second one is media independence, which measures the degree to which the media are able to function independently of sources of political, governmental, business, and religious power and influence. The third one is environmental and self-censorship, analyzes the environment in which news and information providers operate. Legislative framework is the fourth one, which measures the impact of the legislative framework governing news and information activities. Fifth one is transparency, which measures the transparency of the institutions and procedures that affect the production of news and information. Sixth one is infrastructure, which measures the quality of the infrastructure that supports the production of news and information. Seventh one is abuses, which measures the level of abuses and violence based on data gathered about abuses and acts of violence against journalists and media during the period. And this is the World Press Freedom Index by Reporters Without Borders. And 2022, Ghana is at 60th position. Just last year, we were 30. 2020, we were 30. 2019, we were 27. 2018, we were 23. 2017, we were 26. 2016, we were 26. 2015, we were 22. 2014, we were 27. 2013, we were 30. Between 2011 to 2012, we were at 41. Let's still stay on this topic because editor of the Insight newspaper, Kwesi Pratt, has described the drop of 30 places in the Press Freedom Index as unfortunate, saying even Burkina Faso, which is under military rule, did better than Ghana.
Now, one of the things that this report describes in detail is how journalists are simply arrested. I mean, a journalist says something which you say is untrue. In fact, the sitting president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, argued that if it's just about speech and so on, people should not be arrested. But in his own government, people are being arrested for speech. Okay? Now, what is even shocking is that you arrest the journalists close to midnight and detain them beyond the 48-hour limit. That is deliberate. That is not accidental. It is not something which can be forgiven. It is not accidental. And even the way they are arrested, Rambo-style arrest, heavily armed policemen in trucks, waylaying journalists by the streets and so on. It's terrible. And I'm not surprised that our record is the worst in 19 years. The worst in 19 years. One of the things that also comes to mind is simply the state of journalism, which is also described in the report, the state of journalism, the fact that most media outlets are owned by politicians and are used for political propaganda rather than for disseminating information.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Journalists Association is holding a press conference to discuss matters pertaining to the Ghanaian media space. Let's cross over to the press center for more.
So Mr. Ayekwa, who is the chairman of the National Media Commission, to talk to us about his view on the current ratings of Ghana's press freedom. Thank you. In your opinion, what do you think accounts for the current reason for Ghana's?
I am not a member of the research team, and therefore whatever I say will be a deduction from my own observations and other things. And I think that part of the problem is our collective responsibility. A collective responsibility in the sense that if each one of us has conducted themselves the way that we ought to do, we might not have come here. Now, beginning with the journalist is the first point, because that is where everything begins. If as media people, we approach our work with professionalism, if we respect the ethics of the GJA, and if we admit that we are to tell only the truth and not to lie, and that we are not to exaggerate and embellish, and we will focus on exactly the things that are happening, some of the difficulties that we encounter may not happen. For instance, if you're an investigative journalist, now it is important to understand that there may be areas that you will not ordinarily allowed to go. And if you have opportunity of going there, you have a duty to make sure that nobody notices your presence. Because the moment that somebody notices your presence, they will respond. If you want to enter the GJ office by the door and you are climbing the window, nobody will tolerate you, no matter what. And so it is important that if you think that entering the room through the window is the only means by which you can access the information, then you must be very, very discreet, so that you enter there and nobody will notice you. Once you get there and you get the story that you are looking for, the public will be enthusiastic about the story that you have brought. But even within the public environment, if they got to hear that in the window, nobody will support you. So that is the first thing. And so those of us who want to do journalism must learn the skills of investigative journalism, such that where we are required to use subtlety, we'll be able to do that. Where we are required to make ourselves unobservable, we must find a means of entering into places that ordinarily will not be allowed to go by discreet means. Because the moment that our movement is detected I do not think that there's anybody who will motivate us to do that. So that is one of the things. Then public officials, particularly those security officials. I mean, we see that this country has been with that kind of thing for a very long time, where policemen, soldiers, they think that they understand the law and they are the law. I mean, you see a policeman driving on the opposite side of the road, tell him, and you see what he will do to you. So they have done this for so long. And you know, until the 1992 Constitution, there was no express provision in the Ghanaian Constitution that said that press freedom was recognized. What was recognized was general freedom of expression, and that one was available to everybody. Under the 1992 Constitution, there's an additional freedom, which is freedom of the media. And so therefore, like here, assuming that you're a journalist and you came here and there were policemen chasing deviants, and you took your camera or you took your microphone or you took your pen and you were recording what was happening, it is legitimately within your duty. Because whatever that they are doing it in the interest of the people of Ghana. And so you are going to make it even more available to the people. That is that I have never understood. That the journalist is giving coverage to something that they are doing that will make them perceptible, and yet they want to fight the journalist. I mean, it is because of what they have carried over from the past, and they are bringing it. And it's important that they are educated. And this is where sometimes people hold the government responsible. That a policeman or a soldier is alleged to have assaulted a journalist. The matter is reported. Investigations are set up. Now, we never conclude such investigations. And what we are looking for is that at least whoever is there, if they were justified, we should say that they were justified and exonerate them. If what they did was wrong, we should say that they are wrong and we should mete out the necessary punishment to them. Don't forget, the 1992 Constitution makes provision that if you are unjustifiably arrested or detained and you regain your freedom, you have the right to take action against that individual police or security person who disallowed you from enjoying your freedom. And that individual must be held liable for whatever happened to you. So if a policeman goes on his own free will and misbehaves, why should the state apparatus protect such a policeman instead of exposing him? And we are looking for more of such things. You see, it is the lack of taking action against such impunity that the people say that, well, nothing has happened. So tomorrow, when another policeman is going to act, he knows that he will go away. If the first one had been disciplined, the second one would take notice, and that act of impunity will stop. And that is what we are looking for. But beyond everything must begin from us. And we, the people in the media, must be responsible. We must know that when we act responsibly, the public will support us. When we act with impunity, the public will disown us. And more important, our credibility is the most critical thing. You know, you may be the fastest. If you lack credibility, your efficiency will be ineffectiveness. And so let us combine efficiency with effectiveness so that we reach out to the people of this country, and then we will become meaningful and impactful. And so when somebody decides to act against any journalist, it is not the media alone that will make the fight. The whole public will fight on behalf of the media person. But when the public perceive the media as arrogant and as selfish and all that, they will leave us to fight the fight. Our cannot reach anywhere. It is when we get the collective voice of the people of Ghana to support us that we can demand the necessary justice and the reforms that are needed to sanitize the environment and enable the media to play the role that they are supposed to play.
One of the issues raised in the report is the conditions of service of the journalists. How well do you think we can solve this issue?
It's a very difficult question because majority of the journalists in this country are working for private people. And it is the resources of these individuals. Joblessness is worse than having a job. where you say that the salary is not enough. But the thing is this, that do media people talk about other Ghanaian workers when they fall to corruptible practices? If we do, then what is the thing? If the policeman, we see that policeman collecting one city on the road, if we go to the hospital and we see the nurses that there is a box there, then when you enter, you should put something into it, and we see it as abominable and we condemn it, then it means that irrespective of how much that we are earning, we should not allow ourselves to be corrupted. It is true that when people work under conditions of distress, they are fallible, they are vulnerable. But if vulnerability is the cost or the price that poor remuneration entails, then when we see that happening elsewhere, we should never talk about them. If we ever talk about those things, then we should not allow ourselves to be corrupted the way that we condemn merely because, we are not well paid. And indeed, some of the people who do the worst things are not those who are poorly paid. Some of them are highly paid, but because of extreme partisanship, because of the polarization of our politics, a lot of people do the thing that they do, not because they do not know what they are doing, but they do that because it favors some political entities, and they gain out of that, because they are influence wielders. And sometimes they are buying a future position within the political system. And so while I share and sympathize with poor conditions of service, I am saying that that is not the only means for people to be corrupt. In fact, if you want people who are truthful, people who cherish their integrity, poor people, most of the time, demonstrate a certain sense of dignity that rich people do not do. And so we should not allow that to cloud our thinking and say that, because we are poorly paid, that's why we are. It is because there's a tendency in you.
Let's say a bit more on this particular subject, because government spokesperson Eric Amwakuchum says no democracy is perfect, of which Ghana is not an exception.
The media landscape itself is politically tinged because some of these media houses are owned by politicians, which can be for and against and all of those things. And that's what comes together for us to get to that point. You understand? What you didn't say is even the measure for scoring or the rates that was given to any of these things. And I have accepted the fact that when all of these things have happened, which are things that we cannot justify, these issues have to be dealt with. But per your own reading of the report, you cannot lump everything on government. And in this particular case, when we say government, you know what I mean. But we have to deal with these issues. We have to have a proper dispassionate conversation about the whole media landscape, right? Whereby we can deal with some of these challenges. And I also went on to talk about the NMC. And the NMC there has a responsibility. And even government coming to the whole realization that something has to be done about these things. And the NMC is made up of senior journalists putting together these measures to ensure that we do not get to this point again. And also educating, the citizenry, educating the security authorities in terms of how to deal with these issues when they come up and all that. That is not to say that we are encouraging or countenancing this thing. But you see, anytime there's a conversation like this, and it's certainly skewed to a certain angle just for expediency's sake, we are also allowed to talk about it.
This is Newsbeat on Metro Television with me, Kenneth. Jesse, we'll take a breather. We'll be back with more. You're welcome back. The Supreme Court will hear the case brought before it by 3 NDC MPs who are seeking to restrict the implementation of the electronic transaction levy. The MPs filed the suit on Tuesday, April 19, arguing that the e-levy will worsen the plight of Guineans. The MPs subsequently sought for an injunction against the implementation pending its substantive case, but that did not stop the implementation. 3 days into its implementation, the Supreme Court has set today as the date to hear the case. Meanwhile, the Member of Parliament for North Ton, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, says he and the MPs are ready to fearlessly and uncompromisingly defend the 1992 Constitution. His tweets read, "Finally, the day for the e-levy showdown in the Supreme Court is here. We're ready to fearlessly and uncompromisingly defend and uphold the 1992 Constitution. May God help us. We deeply appreciate your unflinching solidarity." What's your prediction? That's from the MP for North Ton constituency, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. The implementation of the 1.5% tax on all electronic transactions above 100 Ghana cedis began on Sunday, 1st May 2022. Meanwhile, some Ghanaians have expressed their opinions on how the e-levy has affected their businesses. Let's hear them.
Since this e-levy started, those who are coming here now, they're not coming to send out, they're coming to withdraw the money because they don't understand the meaning of the e-levy. So we need more education of it. People are not making deposits, they are not making sending, they are just withdrawing the money. They are withdrawing the money from their account because they are not understand how the e-levy and how the things are working on. For the e-levy there, it will help because the government said that you're using it to help us construction of road and other things, so it will help us. But for us, the agents in there, we need the government or we need the telecom to come out to explain a lot so that the customers will understand. Because we are working for the customers. The e-levy means that when you are sending the money from your subscriber, your account to your co-subscriber account, that's where the e-levy will affect you. But when you are going to withdraw or send from the agent point, there is no e-levy on it.
Mobile money no e-levy na masisi nipa bebre abamabu mobile money ho this time. Say no obi kura customer ba nchen na obeto ade o kasa o send sika mobile money amana o se da bi o giska no because first so na eboaye so ubema obi e bia 100 Ghana kura na wo send a o de 1 cedi e bia 2 cedi o de atoso no de na obi anim ba sisi no se nia asi akoba se Uber send this cano, Nipan Bequaco, ye bet say Amanatra, Sa we na ye de tumuno. I had drain. Since a started free Monday, be seen there, Ubia Mayakura with the mobile money manner or accept too. Until I idea a hard drain panties are buying the answer, obey whom Bibia, or Muncha no Munya whom Bibina Diana Crano. Said they are now Omuji 2 moon terminal. Nanny Pebby Munsha die as empty as say, and I ban Tamasan into your shrimp in forno. O man panyin no onhwe no nya hu bibi because ade a isia no na eboaye
I say business no confirm we say perform your drawers for nowadays because of say e-levy start here no for deductions na etie no ma bebre ebonyo so bebre ni nye say this ka wa to phone so na bi ono this ka to phone so na oyi na deductions no e cost so sa go initial review of the 100 cities no ba be year better 1 cedi. Now, no better than 250 pesos. I buy no the 0.15%, and I become home. I might say in total 2.15%, and it's our account. We are a man for any JB, any JB mobile money movie.
Away from that, the strike by the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana has entered its second week. My colleague Ernestina Fake has been following the report and has more.
The strike by CLOCSAC has entered week 2. We are here at the Registrar General's Department, where scores of customers of these departments are stranded. The strike, which started on the 21st of last month, is basically because they are demanding for a 20% neutrality allowance from government. However, last week, we remember they went into a meeting with government and government called for an extension of the date, indicating that by Friday, the payments plan for the neutrality allowance will be out. However, here at the Registrar General's Department, the strike action is still in section. Let me speak to a number of customers who are here to do a business. Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Metro TV.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon Mensah.
Okay, so where are you coming from and what are you coming to do?
I'm coming from Medina. And I'm coming to renew my papers. Unfortunately, I wasn't know it was a strike. So when I got the gate, the security officers told me that it was strike. So I'm still looking if I can get any way to do it. But up to now, it's almost 1 hour I'm still here. So I don't have to do.
So what kind of papers? Is it going to affect you in any way?
Yeah, it won't affect me because I have to use my papers to do my business. I'm going for one of embassy to file my visas, but they requested about my business. Unfortunately, I wasn't know it was spy, but when I got they showed me that my papers as well. I have to come to Richard General and renew it. But as you can see, there's no working because of strike.
Let me try and speak to another person who is also here. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on Metro TV.
Thank you.
What's your name and what are you coming to do here?
My name is Teresa Free from Samokujeto and Associate. Actually, we are consultant and a law firm. A consultant and a law firm. Okay, a consultant and a law firm that we used to file a lot of things for our clients. We have a lot of clients that we used to deal with. So I filed a lot of things and I'm coming to check to find out whether it has been done. But when I came in, so they haven't resumed the strike. So I couldn't get what I wanted. That's why I'm still here.
Is it going to affect you in any way?
Yes, please, because customers are still waiting for their certificates, their profiles and other things. That's why I'm still here. They've given us also a mandatory to file for annual returns. So we don't know whether they are going to reverse it or I can't really tell. That's why I'm still here.
So the mood here at the Registrar General's Department is a bit disappointing as most customers, as you get here, you can see them either seated under the canopy or some just standing under trees just to see if in any way they will just hear news that the strike has been called off and they will be attended to. However, we made a stop also at the birth and death registry where I can report that the strike action is also ongoing there. We earlier made a stop at the local government service department where we went to find out why up until now they are not able to come up with a payment plan as government promised on Friday. And information we have received indicates that they are also working on it to find out from them what exactly is the problem that up until now they are not able to come up with a payment plan. So here at the Registrar General's Department, scores of customers are here disappointed. From the Registrar General's Department here in Accra, my name is Ernestina Afake for Metro News.
As always, grateful for that report, Ernestina. International Firefighters Day is celebrated every year on the 4th of May. It is set aside to acknowledge the works of firefighters who sacrifice their lives to serve people and property. The task of rescuing people from burning buildings and vehicles requires a special kind of training, and the day celebrates the community's courage. Ghana's chief fire officer, while utilizing the men and women of the service, urged them to establish amicable relationships with residents within their catchment areas to avert mob attacks. He assured the team of government's commitment to addressing their challenges. For more on this, I've been joined in the studio by ACFO Timothy Osafo Afum. He's the Director of Public Relations Affairs at the Ghana National Fire Service. Officer, grateful for your time. Today, International Firefighters Day, what is its significance?
Well, thank you very much and good afternoon to your viewers. Today is very significant in the life of every firefighter throughout the world. This is a day set aside, one, to reward our heroes who are alive and also to remember our heroes who unfortunately have to respond to the higher score in the line of duty. And so it is twofold. And so today has a mixed feeling. Whilst we celebrate our heroes who are alive, we also use it to remember our heroes who have fallen.
Let's talk about the fire outbreaks that have occurred since the turn of the year. Give us a breakdown.
Right. As at the first 2 months, we have recorded a little over 2,000. With Ashanti region on top, followed by the greater Accra region.
Okay. And what are the major causes of these fire outbreaks?
Because we are talking about the period within which the Harmattan was in place, bushfires, of course, was up there. So most of the fires were as a result of bushfires.
You have been accused of using outmoded equipment to emergency situations. How do you respond to that? There was actually a time where civilians had to pour sachet water into your tanks to help quench a fire.
There are certain things you as a media should debunk it right away. You see, when a fire is burning and rain cannot stop the fire, how much can sachet water do? So there are certain things you must dismiss it outright. You see, these our personnel risk their lives in putting out fires and other emergencies. The heat alone, you can't stand. One, we need to be protected. But the basic protection, we don't even have. So instead of us to encourage our firefighters and we belittle them in the eyes of the ordinary people, what do you think will happen? I am only hoping that a day will not come that firefighters will not lose hope that after all, whatever we go and do, people will criticize us. When we get to that level, we are all going to suffer. I hope and pray we don't get there.
Okay. Tell us about prank calls. Your outfit do get prank calls a lot, correct?
Yes. I am doing a certain compilation, and for one day, we get as many as 10,000 prank calls. 10,000 prank calls per day. So this is what is happening. And so when this one happens, a lot of people that needs to access our services genuinely are behind. You see, when it happens like that, you'll be in a queue. So as one finish, one comes in. As one finish, another comes in. So you realize that in recent times, people complain that when they call the 192 and 112, nobody picks. It isn't that anybody is picking. It is because you are in a queue, because people are misusing the emergency lines. And so my appeal to the general public is that, please, the emergency lines are for emergency purposes. It may happen to your brother who needs a genuine help, and you are misusing the emergency lines. So please let us be up to the task and help each other. If we allow people's items to burn, or somebody needs a time to be saved, and you are on the line misbehaving, then the person is going to lose his life. And that one, I'm sure God will ask you.
The service has announced plans to modernize. Take us through the steps that you are taking to modernize your service.
Yes, modernization of the service is ongoing. You realize that the latter part of last year, government gave us permission to recruit. And so that is the beginning of the modernization. One is we have to beef up our manpower strength. Two is to establish much more fire stations. And three is to equip the service. And so with the re-equipping or retooling of the service, currently there are ongoing processes with two companies who are still going through the procurement processes. And once that is done, we'll see a retooling of the fire service.
When fire outbreaks do occur, most of the time people do not know what to do. So let's assume that a fire has started here. What do I do?
Right. The moment a fire starts, you evacuate. And as you are evacuating, you sound an alarm to any other person in the premises to also evacuate. Once you have done that, you call the fire service. Once you have called the fire service, all others should get to an assembly point earmarked for that purpose. You don't wait till a fire occurs before you earmark a place that you meet.
Right.
Before an incident will occur, you have a place that all of you will meet.
Okay.
Then once the fire service is called, if you have been trained and it is safe for you to do so, you start fighting the fire until the arrival of the fire service. Don't attempt to put off the fire. And when you fail before you call the fire service, by the time we get there, everything will have been out of hands. So
thank you.
These are the processes.
Very much for speaking to us, ACFO Timothy Osafo FUM. Away from that, let's bring you some more stories as the People's National Convention has scheduled Thursday, May 12th, to hold a National Executive Committee meeting over recent happenings within the party, particularly the ruling directing 2020 presidential candidate David Apacera and National Chairman Moses Daniba back to the party. A statement issued by General Secretary Janet Nabla on Wednesday, 4th May, said any member who deals with the two disposed leaders or attends any meeting they call will be referred to the disciplinary committee for questioning. The statement also announced the suspension of the Volta Region Chairman Cecil Rhodes Kwesi Dogbe and his Bono East counterpart Inusa Boa over what it terms gross misconduct.
General Secretary Janet, cracks in the People's National Convention appear to deepen as the 2020 flag bearer.
People suspended. What were the offenses? Hello, Janet.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so let me greet you and your viewers this afternoon. Thank you for having me. The two that we have suspended have done things that are unconstitutional to the PNC as a political party. I don't know whether I can state the things that they have done without having problems with the disciplinary committee. But the first person, Cecil Dogbe invited all regional chairmen and secretaries to a meeting at Airport View Hotel without permission or even acknowledging the leadership of the party. All the secretaries, they are under me as a general secretary, and all the chairmen are under the acting chairman and leader. Balami can come. So for you to invite them to a meeting without telling leadership was a gross misconduct on his part to have done that. And so we are asking the disciplinary committee, and this is not his first time of doing that. In fact, all the problems that we have in the party is part and parcel of those who have caused them. And now he's showing this insubordination. Then the Inusa Boa was able to use the party letterhead, distribute a letter to the leadership of the party, inviting them to a meeting without the knowledge of leadership. We were there when we saw the letter being circulated around, and he gave those letters to leadership of the party without even acknowledging them that this is what is going on. He is also reporting that there was a disciplinary committee to which he is a member. When we go to NEC meetings and we held NEC meetings, after that, the general secretary will write the minutes. Go back to the next NEC meeting, read the minutes to the NEC members. The NEC members make corrections on the minutes, and then the minutes are adopted. When the minutes are adopted, then those who have been chosen for particular positions can now regard themselves as members of those positions. In fact, Inusa name was mentioned for disciplinary committee as a disciplinary committee member, but no one, the NEC have not yet endorsed the minutes or accepted the minutes. But he got up and formed a meeting and gave letters to people inviting them to a disciplinary meeting without even acknowledging leadership. Leadership have to provide you resources. Leadership have to provide you the date and time so that you can come and do your work, and then the result is given back to leadership. Because when I say leadership, they are supposed to be responsible to the standing committee of the party.
Janet, let me come in here. You have been accused of being the reason behind the cracks in the party. How do you respond to that?
You know, when someone says that, I leave the person to the God that we serve to judge. Because I was sitting in my house when they went and tried to form a NEC meeting to remove me, and then they could not form a quorum. Because the PNC members knew very well that they were trouble causers. The PNC members, those who are members of NEC, they knew very well that they were not leaders. Because as a leader, if you want to do something, you have to follow the precepts. The PNC people knew it and rejected their meeting. So when they did that, I never ran anywhere. I went back to the PAC to wrote a petition to the PAC, reporting Moses Ganiba and David Apacera to the PAC leadership.
Okay.
And it was the PAC leadership that sacked them. It wasn't Janet Nabala. So,
Janet, thank you very much. I'm sorry, for the sake of time, we'll have to end the conversation here. Meanwhile, the 2020 presidential candidate, David Apacera, also joins us on the phone for a conversation. David, welcome to the show. Janet has made a lot of accusations. I understand we've lost David there, but he is the 2020 presidential candidate for the PNC. I understand he's back on the line. David, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. Accusing fingers have been pointed to Janet, who I just spoke with. And what is your take on the suspended members of the party?
Who are the suspended members of the party?
Yes, Janet just said that 2 people have been suspended, one in the Bono East chairman, and also another person has been suspended from the party. And you also, Apacera, have been suspended from the party. A lot of you have blamed Janet for being the one behind the cracks in the party, which she refuses. How do you respond to that?
But nobody has been suspended from the party. Nobody can do that. I mean, how can a general secretary suspend people from parties? These are things that I don't know what she is. She is living in a dream world. You have been a general secretary. You took on the party and said everybody is under you. And you misbehaved to a level that we can't contain it. So we took you to a disciplinary committee. You insulted the disciplinary committee and said you will not appear before them. Who are they? The disciplinary committee decided to submit a report. And in the report, they recommended that you be suspended. We called a next meeting that was properly constituted in Accra and suspended you. Thereafter, you get up, you go to Ashanti region, you call a handful of people, and you claim you held a net meeting there, and you suspended the leader and the chairman, and then you almost suspended every executive of the party, because you said you have taken a regional chairman to be acting leader and acting national chairman. Meanwhile, we have first vice, we have the rest, all constituted. Now, we tried to look at the illegality of it, so we went to court for court to go through and let them know that what they did was just an illegality, but that's wrong with our constitution.
Right, David, I'm afraid for the sake of time, we'll have to end the conversation here, but thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon. We'll be back after this break.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Newsbeat Live on Metro TV. My name is Winston Taki, and now it's time to bring you business. And now to our first business story. The President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, speaking at this year's May Day celebration in Accra, said the plea to government to remove some taxes on fuel will be very difficult to implement. We will be speaking to the Executive Director of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, Duncan Amwa. But before then, let's have a report on this. We have Duncan Amwa joining us right now on Zoom. Good afternoon and welcome to Newsbeat.
Good afternoon and thanks for having me on Newsbrief.
Great. What do you make of the President's statement that removing taxes on petroleum products will reduce government's revenue?
Well, let me start by saying not reducing would also increase government expenditure by the end of the accounting year gravely. Government has a single within the product. Government fortunately itself also buys for market value. And so whereas if fuel was 5 Ghana cedis and government will spend X, when it goes to 10 Ghana cedis, government will spend X times 2 because there's clearly some increase somewhere that ought to be borne and paid for. You talk of government fueling the security agencies like the police, like the military, talk of government providing fuel for, Article 71 office holders, fuel for Office of Government Machinery, fuel for the various ministries, departments, agencies, and their functionaries. You are not looking at very small numbers here. And so government itself, if it allows to continue to be around 9, 10 Ghana cedis, approaching 11 Ghana cedis,
okay,
would take a hit within its own expenditure lines at the end of the accounting year. And what we are seeing is that you might probably be in a better position to let go 4 billion in order not to be encumbered for about 10 to 20 billion at the accounting year. But if government insists to hold on to the 4 billion taxes that it could also reduce to give some relief to everybody within the system, what I am putting on record is that government would end up losing times 3 of that amount by the end of the accounting year, because government is equally consuming, and contractors would soon definitely be asking for double what they charged last year for the same scope of work.
Okay. What other option do we have if government fails to scrap some taxes, possibly?
We are simply throwing our economy out of gear and sync. You would wish that the kind of galloping inflation that you have currently would stabilize at some point. But things are going up by the day simply because one of two things: your fuel is still so very high, your currency has not exactly stabilized. And so whilst importers complain of the currency and businessmen also complain of the fuel that transports commodities or products from one point to the other, you would naturally have a fallout that sees, prices of everything within the market going up by the day. And so we are posing a potential danger to the economy. The government has got the option and the cards are on the table. If it chooses to exercise them, you could decelerate the inflationary pressures you have now. If it doesn't, we'll continue to have the kind of bad inflationary decades that we are recording currently, around 19%.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Duncan. It's been a pleasure having you here on Newsbeat. That'll be all for business here on Newsbeat.
Now time for entertainment news. Now, to our very first story, Ghanaian movie producer Samira Yakubu and Cole Blankson have joined call for the improvement of infrastructure for the creative arts industry. Speaking to Metro News on the sidelines of the red carpet premiere, they asked government to put up more auditoriums which will serve as venues for events such as movie premiering.
They can't get tickets and they are hanging around. They'll be here from 6:30 and 7 o'clock is sold out. And now 9 is sold out. So if we have a bigger place, of course, they have 5 halls and then we've taken all. So if they have a bigger place, of course, that means we would have been able to contain the numbers.
It's a bit unfortunate and fortunate too. At least this tells us that our movie industry is not dead, as people call it. It can be better, and I am sure that the government would be watching or will be seeing what's going on here and would like to improve upon it. We can make money, a lot of money in the movie industry, a lot of it. Okay, we can get a lot of international people coming to come and see us and see what we do. That's very important. And this is the reason why we think that cinemas ought to be open. A lot more cinemas will give us a lot of foreign earning. So I think that let them watch, let them get to know what it is and understand that we've got something to give to the country.
And that's all on entertainment. My name is Nanaya Tanoabwache. Ken, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nanaya. International news is next. The European Union has unveiled proposals for a 6th round of sanctions on Russia, including a ban on Russian oil imports by the end of 2022. The plans, which need member states' approval, also include sanctions on individuals, including the head of Russia's Orthodox Church. The EU also pledges additional military support for Moldova amid fears war could spread to Ukraine's neighbor. That's all time will allow for this edition of Newsbeat. My name is Kenneth Jesse. Have a good afternoon.